Grief enters the story sideways, interrupting the ordinary choreography of a tired evening, and the first thing it does is make every small annoyance feel suddenly foolish. One minute Archie is complaining about a coworker skipping shifts, and the table is a battleground for meatloaf and roughage. The next minute a phone call informs him that Stretch Cunningham, workmate, insult buddy, punchline accomplice, has died of a heart attack. Shock hits Archie in the most Archie way possible. He tries to reject the entire concept of funerals. He argues with logistics. He reaches for jokes because jokes are the only tools he trusts when the floor gives way. But love, even in his clumsy vocabulary, pulls him toward decency. He agrees to speak at the service, only to learn a detail that knocks him off balance again. Stretch was Jewish. This revelation forces Archie to confront his lazy categories, and the episode lets us watch a man who is all elbows with his feelings try to carry a fragile thing across a room. He fumbles a few words that come out wrong. He holds his cap in his hands. He talks about a friend who is generous with laughter during hard years, and, in that untrained, blue-collar eulogy, he lands on the only truth that matters: the way someone's humor can put time back on your life when the day has been rough. Awkward phrasing aside, the moment is sincere, and the awkwardness is the point. Grief is not neat, love is not fluent, and kindness often stumbles before it walks. That same household immediately pivots to another kind of tenderness that people don't talk about in public, because the show loves to take a delicate subject and present it with clean hands. Edith, after decades of marriage, is brave enough to admit she wants to keep romance alive without embarrassment, so she buys a breezy self-help manual that promises to turn a wife into her husband's mistress. The premise is ridiculous on its face, and the comedy writes itself. Cookies cooling on a rack like chaperones, a sweater trying to be glamorous, a giggle that has to share space with laundry. But under the laughter is a serious heartbeat. Edith is not trying to become someone else. She's trying to reassure herself that she is still desirable to the person who knows every one of her habits, failings, and strengths. She whispers about the privacies, a phrase that acknowledges how intimacy must adapt to bills, grown children, and bodies that have learned new aches. Archie, allergic to vulnerability, declares a ban on bedroom talk, which naturally guarantees there will be nothing but bedroom talk. And then, in a soft, unguarded minute, he tells her she wrote the book on making him happy, and that age has adjusted his eyes in a way that edits out what worries her and underlines what he loves. It's corny, but it works because he believes it. The joke becomes a benediction. You don't hear violins. You hear the honest clink of 2 coffee cups on a saucer and the relief of people who still like each other at the end of a long day. The subway episode turns the city into a rolling laboratory of bystander ethics. The car is packed with familiar urban archetypes: the loud drunk who treats the aisle like a stage, the talker who tries to sell politics like magazines, the lawsuit lawyer who hands out business cards the way other people hand out gum, a doctor who blinks at the concept of helping off-duty because the premium is always watching, and the pickpocket who thinks the word harmless is a disguise. Archie sees threats everywhere because fear is his hobby. Mike, the moralist, insists that violence is never justified and tries to reason with the atmosphere. Gloria stands in the middle, stubbornly arguing that kindness belongs in public spaces even when nobody has budgeted for it. Then a boozy husband grabs his wife, and the philosophical debate crashes into a real body in real time. Mike, who has promised himself to pacifism, throws a single punch that drops the man cold. For a breathless minute, the car becomes a courtroom, a clinic, and a panic room, and everyone picks a role they didn't audition for. The man wakes, threatens lawsuits, and we are back on the rails, but the moral aftertaste stays. Mike is shaken less by the danger than by the fact that he did not hate the feeling of defending someone. His creed did not evaporate. It simply met a test. The show refuses to hand us a slogan. Instead, it invites us to sit with the dissonance. Sometimes doing the right thing is louder than you thought. Sometimes your body votes before your mind completes the ballot. And sometimes the world forces your ideals to learn agility instead of breaking. At home, another calamity chooses the worst possible time to prove how little control people have over circuitry. It starts small, a fuse, a shortcut, One of those I'll fix it quick decisions that seem frugal in the dark, and then a smell of smoke turns an upstairs bathroom into an unplanned campfire. The family wakes into the kind of emergency where everyone grabs what they believe matters most, which is a perfect Rorschach test for attachment and absurdity. Treasured knickknacks appear in the doorway like refugees: a ceramic camel, a pink swan, bronze baby booties, souvenir napkin rings, even a certificate that exists solely to prove someone once bought containers that seal. Neighbors rush in with hoses, advice, and an enthusiasm for heroism that doesn't always match their competence. Someone hugs a chair that has molded itself to Archie's shape over the years. Someone else yells contradictory instructions. A dog decides now is the time to demonstrate that chaos has a sense of humor. Firefighters arrive and do in 2 minutes what endless good intentions could not, and the apartment is left standing but singed, smoky, and embarrassed. Enter the insurance adjuster, a new character drawn with the careful pen used for people whose job requires a smile and a calculator. Archie, certain that the world is rigged and that the only way to get fairness is to flirt with fraud, treats the damage like an opportunity to trade suffering for an upgrade. The adjuster is not cruel, he is precise. He walks the house with the attention of a chess player and then points to something tiny and incriminating: a scorched penny in the fuse box, a clue to a shortcut that seemed harmless when the room was dark and the need was immediate. Numbers fly back and forth and keep losing zeros. Words like arson hover unspoken and completely effective. Archie signs an amount that feels like a scolding disguised as a settlement, and the lesson is not melodramatic. It is domestic. The quick fix is a bill you pay later, and you don't always get to choose the currency. Yet even here the show lets humor keep people humane. There are jokes about premiums and paperwork, about the finger some companies extend instead of a hand, about wallpaper swatches that threaten to become marriage counseling, and about the way a chair can survive a crisis better than a plan because it has already rehearsed staying put. Threaded through all 4 stories is an ethic of scale. Big topics, death, desire, violence, money, are pulled down to kitchen table size, where human beings can touch them without pretending to be philosophers. The funeral is not a grand meditation on mortality. It is a man trying to say thank you to a friend in a room full of strangers who had loved that friend differently. The intimacy talk is not a treatise. It is a series of blushes punctuated by a sincere compliment that lands like medicine. The subway fight is not a referendum on pacifism. It is a single moment where a man who believes in gentleness lets his arms speak first and then does the ethical homework that follows. The fire is not an action sequence. It is a family looking at wet towels and burned edges and deciding what matters more than money. The show trusts small objects to carry big meaning: a yarmulke that makes Archie rewrite the story he told himself about who Stretch was, a paperback that opens a door to a room Edith and Archie have kept tidy but underused, a penny that bought light at the price of smoke, a battered chair that proves home is sometimes as simple as a place that has shaped itself to you. The generational friction is steady and funny. Archie believes the world can be repaired with duct tape, common sense, and a firm voice. Mike believes the world will be better when it is kinder and smarter, and he tries to outrun the city's cynicism with footnotes. Gloria wants the arguments to end in hugs and proposes policy changes with the fervor of someone who has read both the book and the comments. Edith believes in mercy more than victory and treats everyone's worst moment as a chance to discover their best. Neighbors, meanwhile, embody the community's emotional climate: a man who appears at the right time with a tool and the wrong instructions, a clerk who overrides a rule because dignity matters more than barcodes, a doctor who reminds us that even good people get scared of liability, a stranger who harmonizes because the piano invites it. None of them are saints. All of them are specific. The comedy never mocks pain. It pokes at the armor people so the soft truth underneath can breathe. What makes the funeral sequence linger is not theology, but the architecture of an apology. Archie did not know a piece of his friend's identity, because he never asked. When he finds out, he has to talk while learning, which is risky. He stumbles and still manages to honor the core of Stretch's life in the only register he's fluent in: the ledger of lunch breaks, nicknames, and 1,000 tiny favors that add up to friendship. The show refuses to tidy his language. It lets sincerity do the heavy lifting. In that, there's a quiet challenge to the audience. If you wait for perfect words before you try to do right, you'll do very little. Better to do right imperfectly and keep listening. What makes the bedroom conversation honest is the show's refusal to turn it into a gimmick. The punchline is a hug, not a reveal. The lesson is not reinvent yourself into a magazine spread. It is ask for reassurance in plain speech and accept it when it comes. There is a generosity in Edith's vulnerability and in Archie's response that feels like a recipe older couples pass down. Protect humor, guard affection, keep curiosity in the house. You get the sense they will keep laughing about this for years, because laughter, clean, affectionate, unweaponized, turns potentially embarrassing topics into shared property. What makes the subway scene useful is the way it respects fear without giving it the microphone. The writing admits that the public square contains predators, sales pitches, and bystanders who would prefer a refund on responsibility. It also insists that there is such a thing as a reflex born of love. Mike does not become a new man because of one punch. He becomes a truer version of the man he wants to be by acknowledging the contradiction and thinking harder about how to live it next time. The scene is less about justifying or condemning that punch and more about modeling the aftercare of conscience. What makes the fire plot feel earned is how unglamorous the aftermath is. No miracle payout, no villain in a suit to boo, just the everyday bureaucracy of cleaning up a mess you helped make. The adjuster is not a monster. He is a man at work. Archie is not a criminal. He is a husband who wanted his house bright again and reached for a coin that was never supposed to be hot. It's funny because it's true, and it's moving because the consequence is survivable. They will argue about wallpaper. They will watch the game. They will make a sandwich. They will live here. The 4 episodes together read like a compact handbook for ordinary courage. We learn that mourning is an act of gratitude, not just sadness, that long marriages thrive when embarrassment is replaced with kindness, that nonviolence is a compass you keep checking in motion, not a certificate you hang on a wall, that shortcuts in the dark can be expensive, but facing the bill together keeps a family solvent in the currency that matters. The characters are allowed to be wrong in the morning and better by night. The jokes are allowed to be silly and the stakes allowed to be real. The show keeps inviting us to make room on the bench, to listen before labeling, to put a hand on a friend's shoulder when speech fails, to respect the difference between a principle and a performance, and to remember that the most reliable safety net in any building is the people who live there. In the end, the images that remain are beautifully domestic. A work hat held at a funeral by hands that don't know where to put themselves, a paperback pushed under a pillow next to a laugh that has decided not to die, a subway poll that has heard more ethics than most classrooms, a penny that once seemed clever and now looks like a lesson, a chair that fits a man's back the way memory fits a life, a damp towel, a relieved dog, a shaky joke that still lands. The series refuses to become a sermon and instead offers small parables played at kitchen table volume. You come away smiling, a little bruised in the good places, aware that love is not a speech but a series of unglamorous tasks performed with tenderness, and that decency, like the best comedy, is about timing, tone, and the choice to show up even when you're not sure you're ready.